Pigface! Fuck it up, Pigface! Fuck it up, Pigface! Fuck it up, Pigface! Fuck it up! Fuck it up!
Hi, welcome to episode 0. In today's episode, no guests, just me. I know, bummer. I'm beginning to think maybe this is boring to a lot of people. It's not particularly lol-worthy. I mean, I laugh out loud, but I don't know that anybody else is laughing out loud. But, whatever. Because that was kind of the point of this thing. Not be marketable, not be good, not be, successful. Why did I do that? I don't even know. I don't believe I can talk about what inspires me, like really give a lecture on books, media that I love, without there being another person on here to banter back and forth with. Maybe my fantasy of being a university professor, lecturer, is entirely unfounded, and I would end up just leaning on TAs to run the entire show, because my empty head comes up with nothing. I've got nothing. And when somebody else is on with me, it's like, oh, I have plenty to talk about. Let's go in this direction. Let me probe this way. Let me ask you this. I think it's a lot easier for me to interrogate, or at least just ask questions of somebody else, than ask myself similar questions. I'm pretty dodgy. I think even when people try to ask me questions, I become so elusive, probably in some unconscious or subconscious way, perpetually concealing insecurity. But if I were to say, what are the commonalities? Like, what are the elements that usually reach me? Maybe it's similar to identifying what toppings I like on a pizza without naming which particular pizzerias I like to order from. Maybe sharing these kind of commonalities in pieces will be, answering the question that was posed to me in an indirect way, in a squirrely way, in a hiding my own insecurity kind of way. So, stuff I like. All right. On like a highest level view, I am entirely inconsistent around genre, entirely inconsistent around what I view as superficial notions of quality, measures of professionalism. If I think about it like in music, to this day, radio play and highly produced albums, whether it's rock, metal, or true pop, there's a production value that follows generational trends. Like, it's easy to pick up and say, this is a Phil Spector era. I hear all the orchestra hits of the late 90s. This is the style that was really impressed upon people in the mid-2000s. Now that's usually the over-influence of what's selling, and maybe a few producers that are actually doing work for more artists than we even know about. You know, things kind of tucked away in liner notes. And much like a brand, every McDonald's you go to across the world, McDonald's tastes basically the same. All the musical output will be mixed, not written the same way necessarily, but mixed and produced to have that same gloss, that same feeling. And it becomes so ubiquitous that I think that there's a presumption that if a work doesn't have that gloss, that therefore it's lower quality. Like, oh, well, that's rough because finished looks like this thing over here, but rough is anything that's not that. And well, one, I think that's empirically biased. I think it ends up having racial biases, cultural biases, economic biases. It really enforces a singular view, like some sort of academic test or IQ test to say if you can fit really closely within this box of arbitrary measures, but not arbitrary, but like measures coming from a particular class, then it's good. Well, fuck that. Like, really, that is meaningless to me. It's a marketing ploy. It's a trick to convince audiences worldwide that there is such a baseline, and it really has a limiting effect on creative expression and the acceptance of creative expression. I think there's 2 or 3 terrible truths about highly produced popular work, and one of them is that doesn't mean it's bad. There's actually a lot of work artistically, well, visual arts, musically, books that are really good, that go through that cycle. I think it's a shoe that can fit, or it's a framing that doesn't entirely destroy the underlying value of the work to me. So there's plenty that I like. What I'm trying to say is that, well, I like that and more. I said there was 2 truths. The hell? So if I go back to the elements, what do I like in a work? A little bit like the Supreme Court's standard for what is prurient or pornographic material versus artistic expression. I know it when I see it. That's kind of a cop-out, right? Yeah, it really is. If I talk about Skin by Kathe Koja, this book has an experimental prose style throughout. When I'm remembering the book and not actually actively reading it again or rereading it, I forget that. What I remember is the story, as if I'm remembering a TV show but not remembering every camera angle, or remembering the gist of a family oral tradition but not remembering perhaps every nuance of the performance as how it was relayed to me. So when I'm reading it, yes, I absolutely dig the experimental prose, which puts the reader very much within the mind of the main character. It has a very interesting way of moving through time. I think I flipped through it recently and realized that there are very few chapters for a book of its size, very few breaks. It's very fast-paced stream of consciousness and doesn't really need a lot of scene breaks, chapter breaks for me to feel like I still understand its pacing at an intuitive level. So I can say, well, I like experimental prose writing. But that's not, I mean, I like it, but that's not what I apparently love about it. If I look at Will Aicher's Calibration 74, another experimental prose, I still like it for its language. My brain takes it more as poetry than typographical gimmickry of like say House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski, which I did reference in my review, where I recall my takeaway as, that's neat, playing with footnotes. There's been 2 or 3 authors that did that before. Okay. But in Calibration 74, it's not the mechanical structure that lingers with me as much as it does in those things I compare it to. It's more the language. So some books, the takeaway, even if you're doing something outside of the heavily produced, market-friendly, still isn't the thing that really works for me. It's something else inside it. I think about this when I think people are trying to pay like an ultimate compliment. I would love to see your book as a film. You know, you could translate the events of some books, of some parts of some books, into visual narratives for sure. But you can't translate the language. You can translate the dialogue, get the actors to say the dialogue, but you don't have the meter, you don't have the word choices of the rest of the narrative. And for me, sometimes in gestalt, in aggregate, in all the small, non-zingy, but just like every piece of brick and mortar of language that comprises a work, that might be the thing that really resonates with me, or I find uniquely beautiful. How are you going to make that into a film? You can't. Unless the film is literally just moving images of the text across the screen, which maybe that's an interesting thing somebody should do someday. So what are the other elements of a thing that can reach me and get up inside my head and stick around for a few years? I guess I have to connect emotionally. It doesn't have to remind me of an event out of my life, and it doesn't have to be something I'm familiar with or something so novel that I'm ultimately not familiar with it, and therefore it's exotic in some way. But I have to find the emotional core, and it has to connect. Again, that's so vague. How can I reproduce it? How can I even find it if I'm looking for more of that feeling? Well, I can't, and that sucks. It's really hard. I have to expose myself to tons and tons of media to find some sliver of a percent that connects with me that way. It's not about heartache, though sometimes it has heartache. It's not about happy or unhappy endings, though I like things with both. I think about the band Christian Death and the song Romeo's Distress. It's so strange. On one hand, it sounds like a local California doom goth band. It's like what would have happened to Van Halen or Poison had they not been able to self-soothe with drugs and sex, but like found that even through those things they were still inconsolably morose and felt like aliens. And I think it's that disassociative, alien, mournful cry that characterizes that song, and it guts me. It guts me. So I know that works. I think about a lot of Peter Murphy's music is like that. I can tell when he's drawing upon Eastern musical influences. I can tell when he's departing from his over-reliance on Bowie mimicry. And there's underneath something so beautiful and honest and lonely. I really, really resonate with that. Like, yeah, okay. This is the good stuff. I knew you were always capable of it, and here it is. But those are two tragic examples. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's early and I'm trying to chug this coffee as quick as I can to like work, expel these strange dreams about new organelles crawling out of your pores. Think about saying something clever about books or media. Stop thinking about how much your hands hurt, or your back hurts, or how your day's gonna be. Let that monkey mind just swing along to another branch, observe, and let it go. You don't need to chase him. I don't know. These multiple takes, these efforts to verbalize my thoughts when my verbal processor is totally hosed, trying to reconstruct how did I fall asleep last night and why was I on the couch. It's like, why am I trying to do this right now? Why am I trying to do this full stop? I guess because it's funny. Fuck. I don't know if anyone really understands or appreciates how much absolute garbage I create. I tend to hoard scraps of wires. Right now I've got a huge stack of weird marble or some stone tiles that were left in my garage when I moved in. Bits and bobs that I fashioned together into strange makeshift sculptures that are very temporary in nature. Leave them out in the rain, they melt a little, looks kind of neat, breaks, falls apart, binding comes undone, and throw it away. I do the same thing with writing and drawing, almost non-stop. Just draft, scratch, and this isn't even practice. This isn't responding to a prompt. This is just bleeding off nervous energy in this act of procrastination, almost a form of creative fidget. And I don't share it, don't sell it. It's not usable. At the end of the day, it doesn't even look amateurish. It looks like a toddler sculpting with a pile of runny shit. And yeah, so that's one thing I do. My actual output work that you end up seeing is like 1% of the volume of trash I make. And you think, well, you can't edit a blank page. All this stuff you have is probably like a lot better to have a lot of output to then winnow down. No, it's not usable. I mean, it's truly refuse. What happens for me is that I have like no sense of composition. I mean, I guess it's kind of Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're trying to go, it really doesn't matter which direction you move in. So if I start creating without any kind of imagination, without any kind of like vision held in my head, of course it's all a shitpost. Still, I do it. When I'm going to try to make something, I don't really put a lot more pressure on myself. It doesn't suddenly become, okay, this is serious work. It still has that sense of play. But before I write the first word, or before I do any kind of sketches, if I have something in my head around what I want to do, thematically or method-wise or any other thing, if I've daydreamed about it for a long time, then I can manifest it. I know that I've done this enough times. If a vision has come to me organically, not through a mechanical process, then I can push that thing into being. Usually pretty fast, but not always. But then it feels different. It feels purposeful. It has a scope that I can execute against. But that part is much more rare. Much more rare. Almost non-existent in visual work, except for the Seeker's Tarot and in writing. You friends of mine out there only really know it in what ends up coming out as books. But tweets, trek. I never read them myself. I don't encourage anyone else to. They are the vocabulary analogy to me making sculptures out of paper clips and erasers that I sweep swiftly off into the trash after I'm done making them. I'm very concerned about what I let in my head. Maybe that's true for everybody, but I look around at what are the trending conversations, what is it that everyone in my community is talking about, what is the national or international level discourses going on out there. And I just see great big fields of hooks and barbs, and you could let any one of them hook your attention, and they grab you and pull you into it, and suddenly you have an emotional investment, you have a drain. And I have so little energy, not so little energy for that. I just have very few resources, and I've learned to optimize them over time to be able to focus and channelize what I have in order to make something or accomplish something, or even keep myself emotionally and mentally in the energies I want to be in. And so these hooks, these attractive nuisances, will destroy me. and I think they'll destroy you. And the seemingly irresistible compulsion to reply to every shitty take, or that if I could just tell this person off, I'll be vindicated against all of my real and imagined enemies in my life or in society. And it's like one individual that you're gonna have a bad interaction with and then end up mutually blocked. It's like you just lost blood. You're gonna need a transfusion. You're gonna wonder why you couldn't then go and accomplish the things you want. You're gonna wonder why you're having trouble sleeping, or why did you let this bother you so much? It's not that I'm suggesting we ignore the things that offend us or bother us or perturb us in the world, and it's not even about pick your battles, though I guess in a certain reductionist view that's what I'm saying. These are traps. These are literally traps. No amount of work thrown at talking with someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about is going to make an impact in advocacy or social protest or critique. It's not activism. You're not doing anything except damaging yourself. You're not convincing someone, you're not persuading someone, you're not normalizing anything. You're draining yourself over a trap, a little hook that's pulling you down, and you'll get nothing out of it except exhaustion. No one has enough resources to do that forever, and it's going to compound any pre-existing issues you have. I cannot get behind it. I'm not saying to be aloof. I'm not saying to pretend that the evils of the world don't exist. I'm not talking about you're so entitled that you have the privilege of not thinking about it or dealing with it. I'm saying do something that fucking matters, and do something that is what you actually want to do. If fighting trolls online, or not even trolls, just endlessly swirling in a internet 3.0, which is all comment section, no article, go for it. But for me, all of these things are latent traps that will take away my limited energy into a direction that creates nothing that I value. And I struggle with it because if you're not participating, well, you're practically invisible. This is the salon and forum for discourse. So it's really hard to engage in some format without being so gnomic, so surreal, non sequitur, that people start to think, he, she, or they, or some sort of joke. Here they come with that nonsense reply. I'm not trying to take the piss or even lighten the mood. I'm just signaling, no, I'm not going to do that. It's all wrong. It's so wrong. It's so wrong an approach that all camps, the I don't care, let people be happy, social media is what you make it, we're not competition, you're all in cliques, I don't see the drama's so shitty, it's my community too, inclusion, exclusion. You're fucked. Like, if you're in there, this isn't the conversation. This is nothing. This is nobody is being a thought leader. You're just in a bad episode of Friends where every cast member is locked in their building because a virus is ravaging the world and food supply stops, and you're turning on each other and you're really starting to hate each other, and any alliances are off, and then you're going to resort to cannibalism after you're done incestuously fucking each other. Like that's where you're at. It's not about a high or a low thought. You're just swirling on yourselves, and you're not making anything interesting, and you're not making anything you want to be making, and you don't know how to accomplish what you want. And attacking each other is easier than going after your actual ideological enemies in the greater world. I just can't even engage, and it's probably always been like this. Not for you, but I mean for our condition of being at this point a solitary species, only able to actively communicate with themselves, pretend that we're not related so that we can brutalize each other upon this one little tiny planet in the world. So I don't know, as above so below, right? You know, this microcosm mimics the greater whole, but I'm not going to be a part of it, not in that way. I cannot, and I'm really surprised anyone can. Okay, that's it for now. I mean, I derailed my own topic. I don't know how all these starts and stops is going to work. I'm sick of looking at myself, sick of hearing myself. And I mean, like, while I'm talking, because I'm not going to listen to this before I post it. Be good to each other, I think. Whether it's stages of the moon or alignment of planets or post-Trump malaise and endorphin letdown or whatever. It's been a hard month. And it's okay to chill for a little bit, to take some deep breaths, to be non-productive. Hell, maybe even follow my friend Brian Douglas's advice and be counterproductive. Culture some nonchalance. Don't try to sort yourself out yet. Just get well. Love yourself. Try not to get murdered. Don't hurt anybody, non-consensually. You know, when you feel better, try again. It doesn't have to be so grandstanding to say that you'll never engage in whatever places. Once again, you'll quit writing, you'll quit this or that. Just breathe and be. And let be finale a seem. You little emperors of ice cream out there. All right. I love you. Be good. Talk to you later. Bye.